the FCC has come out with a new plan for what they call net neutrality, and apparently no one else does. I mean, that's.
I don't. Does the FCC even really exist anymore? Do they do anything? Do they regulate anything?
This is really stunning because you have Tom Wheeler and people were talking the day that he got appointed that this could well have been the end of this. But Tom Wheeler was a former CEO of, I don't know what telecom it was, but he was the head of the telecommunications lobbying firm.
Yeah.
We have covered this on this program quite a bit. There was an attempt back during the Bush administration. The FCC changed the classification of internet providers from common carriers to a non-basic utility, basically a different classification.
Right.
I think it was 2. And they have attempted to impose net neutrality on this industry via the Section 706. I mean, there's no point in getting too wordy about this, but they can't do it. Every time they do it, they just don't have the authority under Section 706. They keep losing court cases. They keep going back to the drawing board when all they need to do is reclassify them as common carriers, and they can do this. The idea, Cliff, that the internet is any less important to telecommunications than the phone was 15 years ago is ludicrous.
Of course. I mean, it's semantics. And again, I'd love to see, we know this guy obviously was a big telecom lobbyist. I'd love to see who he's, or, you don't even have to say who he's potentially being paid more by right now. I shouldn't even imply that, because these guys this is a revolving door at this point. All of these regulatory agencies are in a way that they never were in the past. It's the same thing at the SEC, you know what I mean? So you sort of expect that all these guys who are out in private industry, they're never going to go after their friends. They're only going to make it for the situation more lucrative, because you have every expectation that that's where they're headed within a couple of years, right back out where they were.
Now, President Obama,
none of this happens by accident.
In 2007, all right, this is not one of those things where I projected my own sense of who President Obama was. In 2007, he explicitly came out for net neutrality. I mean, very explicitly. And so this is just, it's unbelievable. And good for Nancy Pelosi, because she basically came out against this proposal, I mean, for what it's worth.
Right.
And, she represents obviously a lot of players and the internet coming from San Francisco. But this is going to be, I think this is going to be a big fight. People need to really contact the FCC. This is a huge issue.
No, I know. We're going to have to
we'll have stuff at majority.fm where you can sign petitions through Daily Co's, and we'll have emails for the FCC people, and then this is the open comment section now. So now's the time to do this.
Now's the time to get in there. They're in the open comment section. You're exactly right. Because a lot of times, these are the things that regulatory agencies can do, when people forget, hugely impact our lives every day, and it happens under the radar quite often. And this is another one. I mean, do you want the internet to look the way it looks now? Do you want to, who's your provider, and how much you're going to be charged to go to this site or this section? I mean, are we going to allow the big telecom guys and the big providers now to essentially to find even more ways to profit and kill the internet as you know it today? And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, your browser will move slower when you go to certain sites. If you're not using the right guys, you will not be allowed to go to other places without paying. I mean, and frankly, I'm sure there's many avenues they can open up for profit beyond what we've even thought of. They've probably got it mapped out somewhere.
Well, that's the big part about this. I mean, we don't know what the future is. I mean, I listen. I know you got to go. Are you all right for time? Do you need to split?
Let's talk for another minute, and then I'll jump.
I mean, look, we don't know what's going to happen with this technology in the future, and regardless, I mean, the plan is now for the FCC is to create a baseline and then an opt-in thing if somebody wants to pay more. I mean, look, that's just for not only do we not know what the baseline is, but the baseline should be where we will be in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years?
Exactly.
Like, why would we put basically an anchor down for the level of quality service that we have on the internet when we are already behind the vast majority of the Western world?
I can't think of a reason except for
I didn't leave you much there to work
well, it's just simple. It's whenever we're doing something that is hurts, does not benefit the vast majority of people, but some small group of people benefit immensely from it. There's your answer. Who are the people? Follow the money, the old saying.
I guess I'll tell you why I'm getting so agitated by this. And I think Michael knew that what he was doing with this. But he pulled a piece by Brendan Sasso. I don't know who Brendan Sasso is. From the National Journal. The FCC caved on net neutrality, but it didn't really have a choice. And it's, I don't know how long this piece is. I mean, I print it out. That's the way I do things. I print it out. So I can't tell you. But I can tell you that when you print it out, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages long. And just to give you a sense of the percentage breakdowns of how this piece goes. For the first 1, 2, 3 3/4 pages, it explains to us why the FCC can't do anything about it. And then on the last 3/4 of a page, not even there, at the bottom of that, you have an advocate saying, the FCC took their best shot, but it turns out we were right. You can't get to where you want to go under Section 706. That is the authority that the FCC uses now to classify the internet providers as something distinct from a common carrier. And this guy Sasso writes, but reclassification has much bigger implications than just net neutrality. The FCC would be applying a massive regulatory regime currently used for phone companies on broadband providers. You know what? That massive regulatory regime works. It's already there. How can anyone make the argument? In fact, not only how can anybody make the argument that the internet isn't as important today as telephones were 20 years ago, how can anyone make the argument that they aren't more important, that it isn't more important to participation in the economy, to education, to basic communication? I mean, it's impossible to argue that. And then he goes on, it's debatable whether it's a politically viable option. Yeah, if it's debatable, then there is an option. Congressional Republicans and business groups would launch an all-out war, warning the FCC could kill the internet economy. That's just absurd. Then his other argument is reclassification could derail other items on Wheeler's agenda, such as an auction of airwave licenses. He doesn't explain how this would happen. A network technology transition also doesn't explain how that would happen, or why there would be a network technology transition for anybody but who is willing to pay the highest amount. And the president's proposal to improve internet access in schools. What? Consumer groups argue that protecting an open internet is worth the fight. This guy should be taken out. What? Who is Brendan Sasso? Is this an op-ed written by someone from the National Association to Not Have Net Neutrality? Is there one of those?
Sure.
No, he's a technology reporter for the National Journal.
What a moron. All right, we're going to put up some links on
there is
the site.
a link on our site for a White House petition to classify internet providers as common carriers.
Okay. And also, we should link to the comments page for the FCC.